A nation can survive its fools and even the ambitious, but it cannot survive treason from within. An enemy at the gates is less formidable, for he is known and carries his banner openly. But the traitor moves amongst those within the gates freely, his sly whispers rustling through all the alleys, heard in the halls of government itself. For a traitor appears not a traitor. He speaks in accents familiar to his victims, and he wears their face in their arguments. He appeals to the baseness that lies deep in the hearts of all men. He rots the soul of a nation. He works secretly and unknown in the night to undermine the pillars of the city, and he infects the body politic so that it can no longer resist. A murderer is less to fear. The traitor is the plague.
Hi folks, Dave Hutto here, writer, director, producer, filmmaker, political commentator. Well, here it is. This is the state of our union, and currently we are at war. Not just a war of ideology, but our own government has lashed out and is seeking to take every freedom away that we possibly have. This documentary is very important because it uncovers and exposes those who are responsible, and it also talks about how and why and when all this is going down. I want to thank, first of all the people on YouTube who have posted information that we're using in this documentary. I want to thank Alex Jones. I want to thank various other people like F.U. Obama and Drinking with Bob, various other guys that have submitted work to YouTube. Well, folks, the time is now. We now have to stand up against tyranny. We have to stand up for what is right. Apathy leads to death. Laziness and idleness leads to the same thing. It is now time to all stand up and declare with one voice that we, the people of the United States, are going to take back what is rightfully ours. God bless you, and have the best of luck. Godspeed, everyone. Thank you.
The progressive movement came about way early in America's history, as far back as even Theodore Roosevelt. Of course, the first Theodore Roosevelt of the Rough Riders, when he was exposed to various elements of progressivism and liberalism. It didn't really start rearing its ugly head until about the 1920s, or even the early 1900s, when Woodrow Wilson, who was elected president, decided to start making huge landslide legislation in regards to the federal income tax. Now, there are many theories behind this, but it is actually believed that the earliest forms of the New World Order started at this point. What do I mean by the New World Order? Well, Woodrow Wilson, his campaign was pretty much funded by the Rockefellers and other major billionaire groups, and they had huge amounts of foreign interests. Woodrow Wilson also wanted to have the federal income tax instated. That was the beginnings of what we know as the Federal Reserve today. Now, here's the thing. The Federal Reserve today is nothing more than just a dog and pony show. Our currency in the past was based off of what we like to call Austrian economics. We were based on the gold standard, and at that point in time, we were able to pretty much sustain our country. What happened was Richard Nixon realized that we could not keep up with the gold standard, so we instated the Federal Reserve in the 70s and did away with the gold standard. But the beginnings of this movement of taxation without representation began with the 16th Amendment, which occurred during Woodrow Wilson's presidency. He passed the initiative. Most of the states ratified it, but there were several that didn't, claiming that it was unconstitutional. Sounds familiar. And, well, there's history for you. The 16th Amendment supposedly was ratified, but there is evidence that it wasn't. Therefore, federal income tax, if you really think about it, is against the Constitution. If you really, really do the math. If you go back to the basics, it is against the Constitution of the United States. That was the beginning of liberalism and progressivism as we know it today.
It is preeminently the time to speak the truth frankly and boldly, nor need we shrink from honestly facing conditions in our country today. This great nation will endure as it has endured, will revive and will prosper. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed effort to convert retreat into advance.
Now, there's some various other theories here in regards to FDR. He's kind of an interesting character in history because everybody looked up to him as kind of being the quote-unquote hero and the cripple in the wheelchair that saves the country from the Huns and the Japanese. Well, the thing about FDR was he was an extreme progressive. He was an extreme liberal, and he wanted to start the spread of socialism right then and there, even though we were full-fledged into a war with Japan and Germany. He still pushed forward his aggressive acts. And what do I mean by aggressive acts? I mean stuff like Social Security. Social Security, let's just face the facts here, folks. People in our generation, in our 30s and our 20s, and even in our early 40s or late 40s, we're never going to see Social Security. It's bankrupt. It's done. The government has wasted that money. It's over. It's history. That's what you get with liberalism, progressivism, and hope and change. That's all I could say about that. FDR thought he was doing the right thing for the country by providing this service as he enforced it as part of income tax, okay? So, where do you think the term for business owners comes from, FICA? It comes from here. What they say is you have to pay this tax so that we set some money aside for you for your retirement. That's all fine and dandy. But privatizing it would be so much better. Why do I say that? Because you have control of the money and you can use it whenever you need to. Whereas when the government gets a hold of it, look at what's happening. They're spending billions of your hard-earned dollars on projects like putting solar panels up on the top buildings in Seattle, Washington, global warming scenarios, saving the polar bears, the fishes, etc. Now you tell me, right now, look me right in the eye and tell me,